Got it. Okay. Hi, everybody. It is so nice to see so many people here from the agritourism industry. I'm Deborah Ross. In real life, what I do is I'm publisher of a web network called kidsoutsandabout.com. And I know a bunch of you guys actually have listings on Kids Out and About, but that's not why I'm here today. I am here today in my capacity as co-chair of the Solar Eclipse Task Force from the American Astronomical Society. And with me is Rick Fienberg, also from the Solar Eclipse Task Force. First, I wanted to invite Julie Izzo-Neidswick from Stokey Farms in Scottsville, just to, I just want to first of all say thanks, Julie, for inviting us and helping coordinate this, but just to say sort of how you see this and why we're doing this, and I'll just kick right back into the presentation.
Thanks, Deb. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I think it was 5 years ago, possibly, when Deb presented to our local tourism board, Visit Rochester, and you just couldn't help but get excited. Like instantly, we're doing this, and the excitement has just grown from there. And we are blessed to have Deb as our leader in our area and really put little old Rochester on the forefront of this once in a lifetime event for us. And so she has really helped us prepare in a way that there's no way we could have tackled what our area is seeing. So we're very grateful. I completely trust everything she has to say, but she has done the research, she's done the math, and she's put in the groundwork. So very lucky that that she's a personal friend and that she's helped us in other area businesses along. So she's always accessible and open. We're going to get a lot out of this session.
Thank you. Hadn't quite expected the accolades, but I appreciate them. And I'm really looking forward to seeing and hearing at the end, maybe just you can kick off the very beginning of the discussion at the end about what Stokey Farms is planning both in October and in April. So what is happening? Well, we have two upcoming eclipses. We have an annular solar eclipse this coming October 14th. I think it's in 59 days, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Saturday during the height of y'all's season, which presents lots of opportunities for you, and a total solar eclipse in 238 days from today. I have been counting this down, as Julie hinted, for like the last 6 years. So this is something that I'm excited about, helping everybody learn to manage and succeed and really thrive within these two eclipses. So how can the agritourism thrive? Well, let's go to eclipse basics really quickly. What the heck is an eclipse? So what you're seeing here is just a nice basic, well, the moon is positioned between the earth and the sun in such a way during an eclipse that it casts a shadow directly on the earth. So within the shadow of totality, that's called the umbra, that's where it actually gets dark. And in the penumbra is where everyone who is within the penumbra during the eclipse experiences partial eclipse. So it's pretty amazing. Okay, oops. So what is the eclipse experience? Here's another way of looking at it. Let's look at it right to left, because that's how this is designed. Before the eclipse, you see the sun. At least you see the sun if you are wearing solar filters that protect your eyes from the light of the sun. Never look at the sun except for just a couple minutes, as you'll see in a minute, without wearing protective lenses. So before the solar eclipse, you see the sun there, and then gradually the moon covers the sun until totality happens for several minutes. So it takes about an hour and 15 minutes from the beginning of first contact all the way to eclipse. And then you see the same process reversed on the way out after the eclipse for approximately an hour and 15 minutes in a total solar eclipse. Another way of looking at what happens during a total solar eclipse is what happens around you when you're on the ground. There's some misinformation, that there's misconceptions about an eclipse. It does get dark during the day, so people assume often that the experience is gradual, that it's kind of like twilight that occurs over the course of a couple of hours. That is not the case from the human experience. So in Rochester, here's a wonderful slide that I adapted, Rick made, I adapted for Rochester's purposes. 2:07 p.m. on Monday, April 8th, the moon will start to cover the sun. We have an hour and 13 minutes before totality. But during the course of that, you can see this red line indicates how much light, how the light changes. And it does not fundamentally change. Your pupils start to dilate at about 75% coverage when the moon is starting to, but you don't notice it. It doesn't feel like anything because it's so gradual. At about 85% coverage, the light around you is equivalent kind of to a shade at midday. But again, unless you're really looking for it, you don't notice it. At 95% coverage, the light around you has the kind of degree of an overcast day, and maybe you'll start to notice it if you really are looking, but it's not really until the last minute or so, when it's 99% to totality, that the brightness fades suddenly by 100 times to 1,000 times. So just as you're designing your own eclipse experiences, that's important to keep in mind, like what's going to happen. You're going to be wearing your glasses and making sure that everyone is all the way right up until totality. So the partial eclipse experience doesn't get to totality. So everybody, again, who is outside the path in North America is going to get to experience the partial eclipse, and it's going to look like varying images like this. Okay, always with glasses. Two other ways of thinking about eclipses is where you want to be. It was when I'm talking to sort of regular people, non-planners, right? People who aren't planning big gatherings. You want to design your own personal eclipse story according to who you are and what kind of experience you want. You could have a large gathering experience where you're with thousands of people, where it's this incredible kind of bonding with all of you. You hear the screams, you hear the shouts, you see everybody crying, and you're together. Or, a serene experience. And this is what my daughter Ella and I had for the 2017 eclipse. So on August 21st of 2017, almost 6 years ago, Ella and I drove in on the 20th from Rochester to Missouri. We landed in St. Louis the day before. St. Louis was not in totality. St. Louis was in 99% coverage. Another misnomer is that 99% coverage is spectacular. It is not. An eclipse is you're either in totality or you are not in totality. You're in totality for the closer you are to the center line of that shadow, the longer your experience of darkness is. But at 99%, it's not spectacular. You wear your glasses and then you wish you had driven just those extra 10 miles to get into the path. It is incredibly worth it. So that's really important to know. Anyway, so Ella and I drove the next morning about 25 miles south of St. Louis to Kimmswick, Missouri, on the side of a tiny little town. Their identity as a town was to send teenagers around on bicycles with fists full of glasses to make sure that everyone experienced the eclipse safely. But we parked ourselves right by a remote railroad trestle in like this little sort of outskirts of it, because Ella is not a big experience girl, big, thousands of person experience girl. You're going to design your own experience and help the people you love design theirs as well. Now, when I wanted to actually turn the slides over to my colleague Rick Fienberg, who is the safety expert, but he has been in many eclipses, not just the one that I have.
Thanks, Deb. I think at one point you were going to explain the difference between an annular and a total solar eclipse, but I think you glossed over that one. So let me do that. The October eclipse is what we call an annular or ring eclipse, from the Latin annulus, which means ring. In that case, the moon is just enough farther away from Earth that it doesn't quite appear to cover the sun. It leaves a ring or an annulus of bright sunlight. And that's what the eclipse on October 14th is going to be, an annular eclipse. It still has a narrow path that you have to be in if you want to see the complete ring, and everybody outside that path will have a partial eclipse. But it's not nearly as spectacular as a total eclipse because it doesn't get dark like it does during totality. So the most important point is that, as Deb has already intimated, you never want to be looking at the bright sun without some kind of eye protection. And during an annular eclipse, which means on October 14th, whether you're in the path or outside the path, but going to see the partial eclipse, you must wear eclipse glasses or some kind of solar viewer at all times. There's no time when you can look without protection. And so what you look through are these so-called eclipse glasses, or maybe a handheld solar viewer. I'll show pictures in a minute, but they have to be safe. And to be safe, they can't just darken the sun. They have to darken it by a factor of more than 100,000. And they have to darken it not only in the visual, but also in the near infrared and in the near ultraviolet, because our eyes can be damaged by infrared and ultraviolet light. So there's an international standard called ISO 12312-2. And we at the American Astronomical Society have taken great pains to identify vendors who are selling solar viewers that do comply with that standard, which means that they cut the amount of light to a safe levels across the whole spectrum over which our eyes can be damaged. So for an annular eclipse, again, you always have to wear some kind of protection. Can you move on to the next one? The total eclipse, there's an exception, because if you were to wear your eclipse glasses during totality, you wouldn't see anything. Totality itself is about as bright as a full moon. And as everybody knows, you can look at the full moon and, it's not too bright. It's perfectly comfortable to look at, and it's not unsafe. We look at the moon all the time. So during totality, you take off your glasses. And this is very important to make sure that your visitors know, because there are tales at every total solar eclipse of people who were afraid to take off their glasses and said, yeah, it got really dark, but I didn't see anything. And the reason is they didn't take off their glasses. But outside of totality, which only lasts a few minutes, you still need to wear some kind of protection. And again, it's got to be this protection that meets the standard of this ISO requirement. So where do you find such glasses? The AAS Eclipse website with the URL there has a list. It has a list of suppliers who we have verified are selling legitimately ISO compliant safe solar viewers. And you can find, if you don't have to write down the URL, if you just go into the eye safety section, which is the second menu item there on the main menu, you'll be able to find this list. It's a really long list at this point. So let me just give you a recommendation. If you haven't bought glasses yet, the two major suppliers in the US are a company called American Paper Optics and a company called Rainbow Symphony. They're both on our list. Go there first, because they're the principal suppliers, and many of the other companies that sell solar filters get them from one of those two. If you go to the next slide, other than the main point being that you take the glasses off during totality, there are a number of other important instructions, and you can find those on our main safety page, which again you can get from the iSafety menu at eclipse.aas.org. So on the left, you see a picture of typical cardboard eclipse glasses. They also, some manufacturers and resellers also offer plastic versions that look kind of like regular sunglasses. But keep in mind that regular sunglasses, no matter how dark, are at least 1,000 times too bright to use to look directly at the sun. And then you see one of these handheld eclipse viewers. It's typically the size of a 3x5 card. And I should say that those are particularly good for kids, because the regular size eclipse glasses don't always fit kids. There's a couple of vendors listed on our suppliers site, our suppliers page, that do sell kid-size glasses, but they may or may not have any by the time you need them. But those cardboard eclipse viewers work really well too. So I think that was all I wanted to say. We'll leave any other questions about safety to later.
Okay, sounds good. So another way of looking at what's going to happen, especially on Monday, April 8th, for the total solar eclipse, we know what's going to happen because of what happened on August 21st and 22nd during the last Great North American eclipse. So what will happen? Well, you got people both who are serious and profound eclipse chasers who will be flocking to the path of totality, but you also have tens of thousands, I mean, we're anticipating millions overall, memories, it's only 6 years away at this point, 7 years by the time next year happens. And social media sent those videos and images and the stories of the 2017 experience. People started planning for 2024 right away. And so regular folks, regular families are going to be packing up and driving, or sometimes flying, to regions in the path of totality. It is a profoundly meaningful experience. If you get me going, just click on me sometimes and I will talk about what it meant to kind of be transformed from an eclipse skeptic to an eclipse fanatic within this period of about 1.5 minutes of my totality experience. But I don't want to take time for that now. Lots of commerce will happen and lots of traffic. So this is the drive shed from the last eclipse, the 2017, showing the ascent, the routes where folks were driving to that path of totality. The totality stretched from the Pacific Northwest down to the Southeast. Folks drove, and so folks trickled in typically to the region of totality the day before, the morning of. But after totality, the psychological experience was that when totality is done, folks are kind of psychologically done. And so that is when the worst traffic happens. There are some stories of a bridge that was from Kentucky to Ohio being kind of bumper to bumper, getting out for 23 hours after the last eclipse, or after the last totality there. So trying to keep people at your venue in your region, trying to keep them from fleeing after on April 8th is kind of a mission of most of the regions in the path. And it's useful for knowing what's going to happen. So there's lots of economic impact studies, and you can find this yourself if you have any kind of skepticism or you're trying to convince others in your region. And we can put this in the chat after as we're discussing, but eclipse2024resources.com has data from the 2017 eclipse, and you can see even sort of regions that are similar to yours. Just click on those particular studies and you'll get to see more about the economic impact for each of those areas. So in terms of agritourism, let's just say what the main opportunities specific to your industry are. Well, so you have both. You can supply wide open spaces for large gatherings and for serenity experiences. So think about how you want to sell this as, and you could do both. You actually could, depending on the size of your venue. Typically, farms and other agritourism attractions are outside of cities, and where they are, there are darker skies than the light polluted cities. Now, eclipses always occur at the time of the new moon, which means that there's no, you're not getting the light from the moon. So it's fantastic for nighttime stargazing. And you'll find that you can attract amateur astronomers, professional astronomers, folks who want that experience to your area if you plan events for the nights before. Also, as Julie kind of hinted at, it is really fun. It's an amazing, and there's nothing negative about an eclipse. So it's a great way to organize and unify your own community, both those who are affiliated with your attraction and those who are in the region. It's been a lot of fun planning. You can supply camping potentially. I just wanted to put it in there if your permits allow. There's been a lot of discussion on a lot of the national discussion lists. Where can we go camping? So there's been some attractions that have repurposed or have been able to repurpose their where they are for camping ability. Merchandising, which we're going to talk about in a second. It's also a great reason to bring the press. And that's not just for totality next year, but actually this October 14th, it's a Saturday. You'll experience either a partial eclipse, or if you're in the path of the annular eclipse, you'll see the ring of fire. And it is a wonderful, it's not just a sort of a gear up experience, but it's at the height of your season. And so you can plan an event that day around this experience and make a lot of money, but also bring the press out because you're just so vivid in the fall. So it's a big opportunity for both October and April. And also just to note, those who are serious eclipse chasers in the US, they're going to go to Texas. It has the it's warmer than it is in the Northeast. Let's just say it. We face that. Julie and I have talked about this a lot. But one of the other sort of aspects of it is, we in the Northeast will be getting folks driving from the cities. So we're not worrying about the fact that we can't, that the Eclipse chasers are going to Texas. But for those of you in Texas, you really have an opportunity to serve that community well, not just on that Monday, but throughout that weekend. One other thing, by the way, before I turn to like one of the keys being how fun you can make it. There's so much discussion of the weather. What's the weather going to be? Is it going to be sunny? Is it going to be cloudy? What happens if it's cloudy? The eclipse is going to happen no matter what. But one of the things that agritourism attractions have that, contemporary people are kind of divorced from the weather, right? I'm sitting in this air-conditioned office right now. I don't know what the temperature is. I don't know what the humidity is, but you all live and die by the weather. Your experiences are weather-based. You're much closer to it. And as people start planning their eclipse experience, they feel much closer to what the weather is going to be. How do we predict it? So you can really make that point for yourselves as an industry, that hey, you deal with this all the time. So it's just a fun way of answering about the weather question. Speaking of fun, your merchandising, how fun you can make it is going to be key, partly to how much you sell. So Perry County, Missouri, which is Trish Ertzfeld, my friend there. She is a one-woman dynamo tourism director for Perryville, Missouri. They were in the path of the 2017 eclipse, and they're in the path of the 2024 eclipse. It's a place where they cross. So they decided that their theme was going to be back in black. And so they've printed everything with an AC/DC kind of vibe, and those t-shirts and bags and everything are already selling like hotcakes. So as fun as you can make it, that will help people sort of anchor their experience in the fun that you can provide. So when you print your merchandise, it's really important to have three main elements. You need to print what this is. So you want to print that it's the Great North American Solar Eclipse. You want to put your venue, where it's happening, your actual name of your actual venue. And if possible, a logo that has both yours and an eclipse on it. And then you also want the date. So if you're printing for April 8th, you want it to say April 8th of 2024. When I was in St. Louis the day before the 2017 eclipse, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. My daughter and I were waiting to get in. The first place we went was the gift shop. I got 2 of the last 3 mugs off the shelf that said, Great American Eclipse, St. Louis Science Center, August 21st, 2017. I wanted all 3 of those because that's what people remember. And that every time I drink my coffee out of it, that's what I am remembering. And it was sold out the day before the eclipse. Cleverness sells, as I said, and people do purchase after the eclipse. So Tyler Nordgren, who is the world's premier eclipse artist and a wonderful astronomer, he was selling his eclipse posters for months after the 2017 eclipse, and he still sells them, that people still want them for nostalgia. And the other thing to realize is to make more, meaning people want to buy this stuff. You likely will sell out that weekend, but you also have the ability to sell it afterwards. So keep them there as a final point. So I had said before, the extent to which you can keep folks at your venue to prevent the mass exodus and help the traffic would be very, very welcome from from your local emergency management and traffic managers, right down to yourself, because you can, keep entertaining them, keep them there. You have lots of opportunity there. So we ask you to do that and have fun. Okay, so I'd like to stop sharing at this point. And what I'm hoping is that Julie, if Suzanne is there, if you can just talk a little bit about what your plans are for October and for April, just to kind of kickstart a little bit of a discussion about this and let folks start asking questions. But I think that'd be a useful for you to do.
Well, first I wanted to touch on some things that you had in your on the screen. And the first is that we discovered that our municipality thinks this is outside our scope of business. So we have to get a special use permit. Not a big deal, but that is something that some farms might need to think about. It's a bigger event, possibly. It's not our normal time of year. So that is something that we're working with our town with. And they did tell us no camping here. We are not set up for that, and they're not willing to give us a permit use for that. But other than that, we are planning a big event for both April 8th and the annular. Our maze this year is Great American Solar Eclipse, and we will be having a celebration for the annular, which is about halfway, as Deb said, and we've already ordered our glasses. They are coming in, and we're gonna have a presentation and an MC, and everyone in our courtyard put their glasses on. Put the glasses on, you can look at the sun, and have a presentation and a kickoff celebration, candy raining down, that kind of stuff, to get everyone excited. And then for next year, we are bringing in, a lot of farms know him as Mike Pierre, Munchkin Mike. He's coming in to, I think that we need an MC, not something that we're capable with. If I remember correctly from what was it, 2018, correct?
2017?
2017, sorry. Is that a lot of places we're having countdowns and everyone's excited and screaming and yelling, and then it goes, silent and whatnot. So we felt that we needed that. We're planning with our food vendors. They're like, oh, they're not expecting us to suddenly need 60 extra cases of French fries for a weekend. So there's a lot of little things to think about. If you haven't done so, right down to additional toilets. Like I said, letting your vendors know, because they're not used to talking to us that time of year. So yeah, that's where we're at. And then as far as Deb did inspire me when she showed the Back in Black, our hoodie is a Dark Side of the Moon takeoff from Pink Floyd. And we're doing them all black hoodies with glow in the dark logos. So we're excited about that.
Cool. And so we'd love to open the floor up for any questions. You could put it in the chat, but you know what? You could also just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. It's okay to be the first.
Surely we can't have answered all your possible questions.
Actually, if anybody's already planning for anything, we'd love to hear just generally what your thoughts are. Besides Julie, Christy, or Cheryl. Christy.
I can throw something out.
Yeah.
We had a eclipse in Northeast Georgia, very tip corner of Rabun County, back in 2017, and the state tourism office, was involved with a lot of these events. And so I was wondering if, the agritourism operations have thought about communicating with their state tourism office to see what they're doing so that they can kind of help spread the word.
Julie, if you have any, I know you guys are sort of part of this too. I love New York, etc.
Yeah, honestly, our leadership goes back to Visit Rochester, and Deb and Visit Rochester were pretty important in getting the state on board, whereas I think the majority of the schools are now off, and the state is planning. Our municipalities, our fire, police, ambulance were involved very early on, as well as the Genesee Transportation Board. So I think New York was like on board pretty early on, and Farm Bureau is starting to communicate those things with us as well, and indicating, hey, this is something you might want to think about, and how to hold an event at your farm if you weren't already going to do so.
Yeah, I think contacting your local Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as your state Bureau of Tourism and Travel, if there is such a thing in your state, are good places to start. Also, if you look on the at the resources website that Deb showed, Eclipse 2024 resources.com, there's a directory of regional and local websites that are basically task forces, regional and local task forces that supplement our national task force. And there may be one in your state or in your region that you haven't connected with, but they would be the ideal place to go.
Yeah, and actually to take up, so I've been part of my job as co-chair of the Eclipse Task Force for the AAS is to try to like sort of pull a lot of those communities together. So it's possible that I know if you're in a region, you can just certainly email me and just ask, hey, do you know who is, working on it in this region? And I may know. So most of you will have gotten an email from me a little earlier today, just saying, hey, looking forward to having you. So you can find me pretty easily.
And one thing for farms to think about, especially agritourism farms, when we're open, guests are coming in and then they're leaving, and throughout the day, it's a cycle of people coming and going. For April 8th, everyone is going to be on our farm at 3:30. So every single person is on the farm at 3:30, and we're like, do we have the parking for that? So things to do is like, we're working with our local school district. They're going to provide some buses. So we're going to be doing parking passes. You want to park at the farm? It's going to cost you. If you want to park at the school, it's going to cost you less. And we're working with the school district to throw them part of the money for that, because the farm can hold a lot of people, but the parking lot we realized was going to be a bit of an issue. So these are things to really start thinking about.
Julie, remind me what your capacity is for parking, just so everybody can have a sense of the scale of what you're planning.
Yeah, so our parking capacity, we realized, is probably about 900 cars, an average 3 persons per car. So that gives us 2,700 people. But the farm has had 7,000 people in a day, just not all at once. So we have over 100 acres, so plenty of space, just not as much parking as we probably need, hopefully need. So we had to go ahead and make other plans. We have a plan with our fire department. They have a huge parking area for tour bus companies. So the buses are going to drop off, and then they'll be able to go park for the rest of the day and then come back at a later time.
Christy, I think you had something.
Yeah, I was wanting the information about the resources and the website, so thanks for sharing that. I'm based in Ohio, so I think that April 2024 is going to be more relevant for the farms in Ohio. My question is, how do you really narrow in on where the right spot in the state is going to be?
Oh, so are you at a particular venue and trying to determine whether people are coming there, or are you trying to sort of guide people about where to go?
Trying to guide people about where to go. I work a lot with agritourism operations across the state, and want
Gotcha.
to, say, oh, you guys might want to take advantage of this event.
Yeah, so I mean, the part of the thing is that the closer to the center line you are, the longer totality lasts. So in
I'll put
Western
a couple of links. I'm going to put a
That'd be
couple of
great.
links in the chat in a minute,
Thanks.
where you can get the highest resolution maps.
Yeah,
Great,
perfect.
thank you.
Yeah, because that'll help. So so it's partly how long can you experience totality, but especially here in the Northeast at that time of year, you don't know what the weather is going to be until really 5 minutes before. So you're not sure whether there's going to be sun or clouds, but for sure that whole weekend, everybody's eyes are going to be on the weather. You're going to see a kind of mass car movement. If there's going to be a place that's more clearly has a greater chance of sun, folks are going to be flocking to there in a kind of last minute way. I mean, in fact, so in 2017, my daughter and I were up at 6 o'clock in the morning, along with everybody else in that hotel, looking at the Weather Channel together to look at, cloud patterns and where things were going and what the direction of the wind was, to see if we can kind of scope out a way to be kind of certain about being in non-clouds. So that's going to be the main driver, I would say, especially day of. In terms of Ohio, I think you have about the same opportunity for clouds versus sun at that time of day. And so it's a little after 3 p.m. is when it's happening on April 8th. So in Rochester, we have, according to Eclipseophile, our lovely friend Jay, we have a 51% chance of it being sunny at 3:20 in the afternoon on April 8th, but it's so hard to know. Yeah. So Rick put some of that extra stuff in the chat. That was useful.
So I appreciate that. I guess my follow-up question would be, is there someone that will live stream it? So if it's raining and cloudy and you've got all these people on your farm that have pre-purchase tickets? Can we set up big screens and live stream so we don't just lose the whole thing?
Yes, indeed. NASA is going to be live streaming from, I believe, 3 different places along the path
Yep.
to maximize their chance of having clear skies in at least one of them.
Yep.
And the San Francisco Exploratorium is going to be webcasting as well. And there will probably be a couple of others. Some of the bigger events that are being planned around the country, such as there's one in Waco, Texas, that's being done in collaboration with the Discovery Channel. They're likely to have live streams too. So you'll be able to find information about where you can view the eclipse online on our website and others in the days leading up to the eclipse.
Thank you.
One of the NASA locations is actually Cleveland. So I think it's Kerrville, Texas, Indianapolis, and Cleveland is where Nashville at NASA is live streaming from. Other thoughts, questions?
This is me again and Cheryl. With regard to those folks that are not on the path, they could live stream it and then, have someone from a local planetarium come and do something maybe the night before to kind of extend people's stay, if they're doing any kind of farm stay or camping or anything like that.
This is true. If you're just outside the path, people aren't going to be at your attraction for the totality itself, because they're going to go. But if you're on, especially if you're on the way in, you have opportunity for dark sky tourism those extra couple of nights leading up, as long as it's clear. The other thing is that night, the night after the eclipse, the night of April 8th, is the NCAA championship. And so that's happening at 9:05 p.m. Eastern time. It's in Phoenix, so I guess that's 7:05 p.m. tip off. But it's a lot of hotels have kind of cottoned onto this, that a basketball looks awfully like a moon when you're designing a logo. So flipping to basketball after the eclipse is just a fun way if you're going to do a basketball watching event that night to try to keep folks there. So they're capitalizing on that too. I'm not sure how that'll apply to agritourism so much, but just worth saying. Other idea? Anybody else want to share about what they're doing or thinking or planning? Like, what's in your way of doing something? I'd be really curious. I know that you all are from all over the country. So anyone sort of far outside the path who's planning for something, or anybody who is within the annular path, planning something, would love to hear about that too.
Hi, not answering one of those questions that you just asked, but I was wondering if there are any sort of like national event boards that we should be posting to, if we'll be hosting and in the path of totality, where some of the people who are traveling from out of town might be looking to see, like, hey, where in Western New York can I go view the event?
Yeah. For one thing, you want to be talking to your local folks to be promoting that. And if you're in Western New York, that's us with that hat on. But there are a bunch on Facebook. So a bunch of us are sort of keeping track of those. Lots of people are posting about their concerts, their camping, their experiences, even the pricing for it. So if you just search for Solar Eclipse 2024 on Facebook, you'll find several discussion groups that people have been, you just want to follow the rules about how to post. So look that up before you post. But us knowing about those events, part of our reason for being at the AAS is to help those who are looking for those kinds of stories, like in the press, contact the folks who are actually making things happen. So we have an Eclipse Task Force meeting. Our final in-person meeting is going to be in San Antonio on September 29th and 30th, but it's also on Zoom. And actually, Rick, while I'm talking, if there's a way that you could just hunt down the link, the registration link for the So
Yep.
if you're interested, you can attend on Zoom or you could attend in person. But where one of the focuses of it is actually a press focus. So our very first panel that on Friday morning, the 29th, is we'll be having various journalists of different stripes be presenting about how to pitch an eclipse story to them. And then at the end, close to the end of the day, you'll have the opportunity, if you're an in-person participant, to actually pitch to the others from the press who are going to be there. We're working to do that. But even afterwards, we want to help you be the conduit for all of your experiences, so that we could tell folks about it. So we know folks all over, so tell us at the very least.
I also think that NASA is planning to provide a form where people can list events, and then they're going to display them on a big map. They did that in 2017, and it was really popular. I'm pretty sure they're planning to do that again. There's also a website that we collaborate with. Its webmaster is on our task force, greatamericaneclipse.com. They maintained a map of events in 2017, and again are likely to do it for 2024. So it's something that, when we become aware that such maps exist, we will link to them from our website at eclipse.aas.org.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Rick, what didn't we cover? You've been at this since like 2014. So just, is there anything else that you can think of that should be said, reinforced? Order your glasses now. If we should talk about just the difference between ordering branded glasses versus ordering other, just pre-printed glasses.
Sure, I can address that. So many of the organizations or companies that produce solar eclipse viewers and glasses will allow you to design your own, have custom printed ones. There's plenty of time to get custom printed viewers for the April eclipse. It's starting to get pretty tight. The manufacturers are pretty much going full tilt right now for the October eclipse. So if you were to order custom printed glasses now, you might or might not be able to get them. And if you can get them, you might have to pay a bit of a premium to get them. But they are also, especially the two big manufacturers that I mentioned, Rainbow Symphony and American Paper Optics, but there are some others too that will sell, point of purchase displays, pop displays, where you can have a nice display with maybe 100 Eclipse glasses in it or something. They're stock designs, but there are many very nice stock designs to choose from. And that's a very economical way of getting a modest supply of Eclipse glasses that you can be confident that you can sell out. If you order custom printing, you usually have to get a pretty large quantity to get a decent price. So depending on the size of your event, that may or may not be feasible. But it's always good to order glasses sooner rather than later, because in 2017, in the weeks leading up to the eclipse, almost everybody ran out of supply. And then suddenly this very, it should have been predictable, but we didn't see it coming, situation occurred where suddenly a whole bunch of Chinese vendors started offering Eclipse glasses on Amazon.com. The problem was that we had no way of verifying that those glasses were safe. So that was kind of scary.
Yeah, and I mean the pricing also, if you're ordering in large quantities, it can go down to in the 30 to 40 cent range.
Right.
Per.
Right, and one thing to keep in mind too is that a lot of people buy glasses to give away, but a lot of other people buy glasses and sell them. So whatever the price, I mean the most you're going to pay for Eclipse glasses, if you buy any number, from 100 up, is going to be like a little over $1. But once you start getting up into the thousands, they're 50 cents or less. In any case, even if you're paying a buck and a quarter for them, you can sell them for $2 or $3. People are willing to pay that much for these things as onesies and twosies. And so you can actually make quite a bit of money just selling the glasses, even though it may seem like a big upfront expense.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing booths around here, our Rochester Eclipse Task Force, and when we're able to sell them, people can't believe that they're only $2.50. And that's because they remember what a premium they were at in 2017. And people were
Yeah.
paying, you know, $20, $30 for a pair. You know,
In the
just
days before, that's right.
right in the immediate days before. So like $2.50, man, it seems like an incredible bargain, but that is, you'll make money on it.
And that's a really good point that we're on this Zoom because money. It's not always a fun thing to say, but a lot of agri-entertainment farms, you know, we have to diversify with food offerings, activities, different things that we're doing time of year. This is just another diversification.
Yep. That's a
And
good way to look at it.
to keep your farm healthy financially.
Right. And it's a rare opportunity. You know, the next total solar eclipse, we're a little bit spoiled in the US because we just had a total eclipse in 2017 and we're having another one in 2024. Plus we're getting this annular. It seems like, oh, eclipses happen all the time. Well, they do, but usually they're somewhere else. And the next big solar eclipse to come to the US is not for 20 years now. And the last big one to come to the US before the last one was like 40 years before. So, you know, you really should take advantage of this. If you can possibly take advantage of both eclipses, even if they're partial for both of, you know, on both dates for you, you know, people are going to be looking for somewhere to go to experience the eclipse safely and with other people. So definitely worth thinking about doing something.
Okay, well, it was marvelous having all of you here. You have some of this contact information. We really encourage you to attend the San Antonio workshop. Look at that, the registration link, even if you can only come on Zoom. It's a really nice time. You'll learn a lot, and it's, you know, good people. I was just gonna say the Eclipse folks are just nice, nerdy, wonderful people, and you'll have a good time. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We will make the recording available to you also so that you can turn everybody around you into Eclipse ambassadors too. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Deb
everyone.
and Rick. You guys are so generous with your time. We appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.